Today's episode of Off the Timeline is titled Texas A&M Betrayed Oklahoma and Changed College Football Forever. In real life, Texas A&M joined the SEC in the early 2010s. A decade later, Oklahoma and Texas followed. That's the timeline we know. But today, we're exploring a different timeline. An alternate timeline where Texas A&M gets exactly what it wants. An alternate timeline where Oklahoma never gets its SEC invitation. And an alternate timeline where one decision in 2011 eventually changes the balance of power across college football. This is not what happened. This is what could have happened under different circumstances. And our alternate timeline begins in one of the most chaotic periods in conference realignment history. The Big 12 is wobbling. Nebraska, Colorado, gone. The Pac-10 nearly pulled off the haul of the century. Every major program is quietly asking the same question: what happens next? In our timeline, Texas A&M leaves for the SEC. In this alternate timeline, Texas A&M makes sure Oklahoma never follows, and that changes everything. And that sets the table for the betrayal. Before we continue, let's establish the exact moment history changes. In real life, there is no evidence Texas A&M ever blocked Oklahoma from joining the SEC. This is the point where our alternate history diverges. Imagine SEC leadership discussing future expansion. Texas A&M is a clean addition, large fan base, Texas recruiting, strong TV value. Then Oklahoma enters the conversation and suddenly things become complicated. Oklahoma means questions. Does Oklahoma State come too? Does Texas eventually follow? Does the Big 12 collapse immediately? Do lawsuits begin? Do TV contracts unravel? In our alternate timeline, Texas A&M quietly makes a strategic argument. Not that Oklahoma isn't valuable, but that Oklahoma is too complicated. Texas A&M argues that SEC expansion should stop with Texas A&M and Missouri. The conference agrees. Texas A&M and Missouri join. Oklahoma stays in the Big 12, and from that moment forward, history changes. And that sets the table for Oklahoma realizing what happened. At first, Oklahoma doesn't know the full story. All the Sooners know is that Texas A&M escaped. They didn't. The SEC door opened for a couple schools, then closed. The official explanations are familiar: timing, politics, television, conference stability. But inside Norman, another theory begins to spread. Texas A&M didn't just leave. Texas A&M made sure Oklahoma stays behind. Whether that's true almost doesn't matter, because Oklahoma starts acting as though it is. The Sooners don't become weaker, they become motivated. And that turns out to be a problem for everyone else. And that sets the table for the worst possible outcome for Texas A&M. Texas A&M gets their dream move. Then Oklahoma starts winning. A lot. In 2012, Texas A&M bursts onto the SEC scene. Johnny Manziel wins the Heisman. Alabama gets stunned, and the Aggies look brilliant. For a moment, it appears the story is over. Then Oklahoma starts collecting receipts. In 2013, the Sooners beat Alabama in a bowl game. The symbolism is impossible to ignore. The team left outside the SEC just beat the face of the SEC. Then comes Baker Mayfield, then Kyler Murray, then playoff appearances, then more conference titles. Every year, Oklahoma remains elite. Every year, the same question grows louder. What if Texas A&M accidentally created a rival instead of eliminating one? And that sets the table for the secret plan. This is where our alternate history timeline takes another turn. In real life, Oklahoma remained heavily connected to the SEC rumors prior to joining in real life, not here. In this alternate universe, Oklahoma never fully trusts the SEC again. The Sooners start quietly exploring other options, not publicly, not aggressively, but consistently. Every expansion rumor gets evaluated. Every TV contract gets examined. Every conference relationship gets studied. Because Oklahoma reaches a conclusion. If one conference can shut the door on you once, they can do it again. And over time, a new possibility begins to emerge. Not the SEC, something else, something larger. And that sets the table to the moment everyone expects. Fast forward to 2021. In the early 2020s, this is when Oklahoma and Texas eventually agree to join the SEC. Most people assume the same thing happens in our alternate timeline. After all, the SEC is still powerful. The money is enormous. The fit makes sense. Texas reaches out, the SEC reaches out. The invitation finally arrives 10 years late. Cue happy ending. Except Oklahoma spent an entire decade preparing for another option, and that's when the largest surprise in our alternate universe arrives. And that sets the table for the shockwave. Instead of joining the SEC, Oklahoma joins the Big Ten. The announcement goes across college football. Suddenly, the Big Ten has Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State, USC, Oregon, Washington, Nebraska, and Oklahoma. TV markets and recruiting territories adjust, as does power. The conference race changes forever. The school Texas A&M once viewed as a rival has become the cornerstone of an entirely different superpower. And that sets the table for the irony. The irony is what makes this alternate history fascinating. Texas A&M wins. They accomplish every goal they originally set out to accomplish. Leave the Big 12, join the SEC, strengthen their brand, increase recruiting access. None of that changes. What changes are the unintended consequences. By keeping Oklahoma outside the SEC, they force the Sooners to spend a decade thinking differently about their future. And when Oklahoma finally gets its chance to choose, it chooses a path no one expected. Not because it couldn't join the SEC, because it no longer wanted to. In real life, Oklahoma eventually followed Texas A&M into the SEC, but in this alternate universe, Texas A&M's greatest realignment victory creates the one thing the SEC never wanted: a rival superpower centered around Oklahoma itself. And that's how one decision in 2011 changes college football forever. And if you enjoyed this college football alternate history, hit like, comment, and subscribe. And I will see you in the next timeline.